The radical left's agendas are challenging American values, but conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Who was sitting in for us yesterday? I don't remember, Mr. Producer. Ben, I want to thank Ben Ferguson. Always does a great job. Good man. Thank you, buddy. But here I am today. Now let's see. Should I start with the Epstein matter or the Bolton matter? The Epstein matter. Well, we have the Deputy Attorney General who interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell. His name is Todd Blanche. We've known him here. We've talked to him on the air. He's a very good lawyer, very loyal to the president, but an excellent lawyer. And he did an interview with her, and that's being released, the audio and the transcript. And we find so far that there was no list, which confirms what the Department of Justice had said, that there is no anything of Trump in any awkward position or doing anything awkward. And her father was not a spy for Israel. Now, I know this is going to burst a lot of balloons. I know it. I know it. That is, that Epstein was not a spy for Israel. And, in fact, her father didn't even know Epstein, she points out. But regardless, already, I'm listening and watching, and can't believe any of this. Can't believe any of this. Okay, can't believe any of this. So what are we going to believe? Department of Justice sought to have all the grand jury information released. 3 separate federal judges said, no, we're not going to pierce the secrecy of the grand jury. So no grand jury information, no list, no Trump, no Israel. So what are the kooks going to do? What are the grifters going to do? What's Tucker going to do? What's Rogan going to do? What are they all going to do? They're going to say, oh, I don't believe any of this. It's a massive cover-up. And they'll be doing this day in and day out, day in and day out. But I've said to you folks before, because I want to move on from this, what is the end game here? What is the end game? I don't understand. Do you understand, Mr. Producer? I don't. No, nobody does. There is no end game. And so what happens is these people try to light you up. They just keep trying to light you up, listen. We're going to complain and attack and complain and attack. Just keep listening and you keep listening, and there's no end game. There is no end game. Okay, that's my Epstein discussion for the day. Now let's get to a real matter. John Bolton. I want you to listen to what some of the losers have to say, and then I'm going to explain why John Bolton may be in very, very serious trouble. I knew John Bolton a long time, and he lobbied me to help him get the national security position. I wasn't the only one he lobbied. He lobbied other people as well. Of course, in the first term of the Trump presidency. And let's see here if I can find the audio that Mr. Producer sent me so beautifully, and that I printed out, but I can't find. I'll pull it up here in a second, because I want you to hear some of this, because the conspiracy theories come out. Do you realize how much of our day is spent listening to BS and crap? The lies from the media and the conspiracy theories from the podcasters. Do you realize how much of our time is spent on this stuff? It's really unbelievable. Now, let's start with Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who covered up for Biden and Biden's mental situation. And so Chris Coons is on the Constipated News Network. He shouldn't be anywhere, because he is not only not reliable, he's a liar. But there he is. He finds all of this so chilling. Cut 3, go.
Well, Kate, the timing of this is chilling. As you said in your introduction, it is court authorized, and it is alleged to be related to a national security investigation.
So why is the timing chilling? Would it be better 3 months from now or 2 months ago? Why is the timing chilling? Why do these fools come onto these shows all prepared with their one-liners and their special words? It's chilling. What's chilling? All of a sudden, they're special pleaders for John Bolton. They used to hate John Bolton when he worked in the Reagan administration, when he worked in the Bush administration, when he was national security advisor to President Trump. As a matter of fact, he couldn't get his UN ambassadorship confirmed. He was a recess appointee for a couple of years. They hated him. Now, he's their darling. Go ahead.
But it's important for your viewers to remember the context here. John Bolton served as national security advisor in the first Trump term. After that Trump term, he wrote a book entitled The Room Where It Happened, where he said a lot of unflattering things about Donald Trump, his lack of knowledge about national security, his repeatedly needing to be talked out of withdrawing from NATO. And in particular, and I quote, he said...
Let's stop for a second. Isn't this amazing? Two things right away come to mind, don't they? You're the national security advisor. Why are you writing a book about your boss? Ladies and gentlemen, I served in the Reagan administration for 8 years. I never wrote a book about any of my bosses. But that's totally unethical, but it's not illegal. Now, he talks about how he had to talk Trump out of withdrawing from NATO. Didn't he just say that, Mr. Producer? He sure did. And yet Trump, without John Bolton, has made NATO stronger than ever before. But he had to talk him out of it, don't you know? So that doesn't even make sense to me, what he says in his book there. Anyway, go ahead.
And Trump practiced obstruction of justice as a way of life. In recent days, after the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, Bolton has been publicly criticizing President Trump, saying that Putin is playing him.
Bolton is always publicly criticizing President Trump. Always. Go ahead.
Doesn't understand the risks of what he's doing in engaging with Putin, and Trump has been firing back. So the timing of this search of Bolton's home is particularly chilling.
See, he's got his whole narrative. There's nothing chilling about the timing of this. Stick with me, because I'm going to explain this whole thing. I'm going to explain this whole thing in ways that nobody is at this point. Okay, let's go to the next. Who's on the next on the list there, Mr. Producer? McCabe. Let's go to McCabe. Now, he shouldn't be on TV at all, should he? Should he? And McCabe may have problems down the road, too. But they bring in these unethical bastards who were caught red-handed in the Russia collusion stuff to comment. I mean, seriously, folks, seriously? Go ahead.
We know that Mr. Bolton has said critical things about the president. That's not illegal. That's not a crime.
It's not. And that's right. That's not what he's being investigated for, genius. Is it? Go ahead.
Be pretty squarely within your First Amendment right in this country. And in fact, you shouldn't.
This has nothing to do with the First Amendment, does it? Now, all these people wanted Donald Trump locked up on day one on the documents case. Remember all that stuff, folks? The Espionage Act. Presidential Records Act. And, of course, Donald Trump had been president, and I argue that those laws don't even pertain to a former president. Otherwise, the constitutional construct doesn't work properly. But we made those arguments. I was right. We'll put them aside for now. Bolton has none of those protections. So when it comes to releasing classified information, it has nothing to do with the First Amendment. Period. Did you hear this clown, this McCabe, talk about the First Amendment when it came to Donald Trump? No. Donald Trump was charged with 40 felonies in the so-called documents case. 40 felonies. And he's the ex-president. And it was time to try and interfere with the election. But now we circle the wagons around John Bolton. The timing is chilling. The First Amendment. Wow. Go ahead.
The Department of Justice and the FBI have all kinds of policies absolutely prohibiting investigating people for the exercise of their First Amendment rights. And so if that's what's going
exercised, investigated for exercising his First Amendment rights. Liar, buffoon. Now, who's the so-called journalist here? Kate Bolton. Now, we know Kate from the past. IQ of a glass of water. And a moron. Go ahead.
And there's all kinds of reasons to believe that that might be the true motivation. We know that the president has embarked on a pretty extensive effort to go after his perceived enemies.
First of all, the president's not going after anybody. The Department of Justice is conducting investigations, the FBI. This was a warrant that was issued by a federal court. Think a federal court would issue a warrant if McCabe is right? Of course not. Do you think a federal court would issue a warrant if Chris Coons is right? Of course not. You got to show a judge. It could be a magistrate judge or a straight-up federal judge. You've got to show them that there's probable cause a crime was committed. And then you have to attach evidence. Evidence. In the form of a signed document. Go ahead.
Who's running on retribution.
That's right. I am your retribution. That's what he told his supporters. So there's all kinds of reasons, I think, to look at this with a jaundiced eye and to be aware of the fact that
this guy has said nothing. Go ahead.
Just the probable cause articulated in this search warrant.
So there's got to be more than the probable cause articulated in the search warrant. Got to be more. When this federal court went ahead and issued the warrant, there's got to be more at stake here, where there's got to be more somewhere. Now, ladies and gentlemen, none of this has been released to the public yet. Not even the supporting evidence for the warrant. None of it's been released yet. At some point, it's going to be released. It could be released tomorrow. It could be released next month. I don't have any idea. So none of it's been released, but McCabe knows there's got to be more. There's got to be more here. Then we have a little break we're going to take. Stick with me. It will all make tons and tons of sense when I'm done. Seriously. You're going to know as much as the plagiarists out there who will take what I say and regurgitate it over the weekend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we're less than a year from the 250th birthday of our great nation. But sadly, far too many have forgotten what this country stands for. Why? Because they forgot or were never even taught how this country was founded, why it was founded, and who founded it. If we lose our heritage, we lose America. That's why the Heritage Foundation needs your help. They've created a resource not just to ensure that patriots like you don't forget about the American founding, but to equip Americans with the facts they've never learned in school. This resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores the question of why it's so important to study the American founding and why the founding still matters today. Folks, don't wait. Get your free copy of this essay today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Now, included in this resource is a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. You need to read it, folks, and so does everyone you know. So go to heritage.org/LEVIN now. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. All right, let's keep going. You're going to want to hear this entire hour, the entire 3 hours, of course, but especially as I walk you through this, because you've heard the opening. You're going to hear the middle, and then you're going to hear the end. Very important. Now we have Representative Raja Krishnamurthy. That's right. He was on CNN today. CNN was very busy. They had Coons on and McCabe on and Raja. They have him on. He's a representative who wants to be a senator from the state of Illinois. Cut 5, go.
You were questioning the timing of this and raising a possible connection to the turning over of some documents of Epstein files to your committee today?
Yeah, I think today is the first day that the DOJ has been required to comply with the subpoena. They said that they would start producing documents.
What's the problem with this theory, America? What's the problem with this theory? Did they go to a federal court and get a warrant? Yes, they did. You know, unless it's an emergency, you can't just in 2 minutes go to a court and get yeah, we'll sign off on that. It could take days, depending on what it is. I suspect this took days. I suspect it took days, but distract from the Department of Justice turning documents over to a Republican committee on this? To distract from that? Distract from what? Go ahead.
That they're going to slow walk that as well, but there's tremendous clamor for these documents and transparency as to these files, and as you know, both Donald Trump...
See, this whole Epstein thing, when the fake MAGA fools keep pushing this crap, it plays right into the hands of the Democrats and the media. That's why this, I'm sure, frustrates the president. The president knows he didn't do anything. And this Ghislaine Maxwell now says, no, he didn't do anything. We've already told you there's no list, we were told, and she says there's no list. She's already said that Epstein was not involved and Israeli intelligence had nothing to do with it. And then we get, well, why should we believe her? Okay, well, why should we believe anybody? How's this going to end? Who should we believe? Who should we believe? Epstein killed himself, according to 2 attorneys general of both parties. 3 federal judges refused to release the grand jury information, which wouldn't give you much anyway, quite frankly, because the grand jury was investigating her and him, not all the issues involved necessarily. But okay. So this is where we are. So now everything's to distract us, you see, from Epstein, which is BS. Stick with me. I got more. How many founding fathers can you name? I bet most Americans can't name more than 2 or 3. Folks, if we forget the founding, our country's heritage, we risk losing our America as we know it. The Heritage Foundation needs your help, ensuring that the American founding and those who made it possible aren't forgotten. Their new resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores why the American founding still matters in the 21st century and why it's so important that we study it. Without the unique principles that form the basis of our founding documents, the challenges of self-government, and the dedication vindication of our founding fathers. America as we know it could never have existed. So go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your copy of this important new essay from the Heritage Foundation, which includes a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. There's too much at stake to not take action today, so please get your free copy at heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin.
This is the nation's town hall meeting, and you can join in at 877-381-3811.
This is where the broadcast plagiarists, I call them, will jump in. And we'll try and monitor this so I can tell you which ones it'll be, both on radio and cable TV. But on June 20, 2020, a federal judge by the name of Royce Lamberth issued an opinion. The Department of Justice went to federal court. He's a federal district judge and has been a long time. I've known him a long time, but not recently. And it was the Trump Justice Department that sought an injunction to prevent the book from being published any further and distributed any further. That is the Bolton book. But it was too late. It got out. So the judge ruled, well, the injunction doesn't really work, does it? However, he had scathing things to say about what Bolton did. And I'm going to save most of it for my Sunday Life, Liberty, and Levin program on Fox, but I want to take you to the last paragraph of his conclusion. Defendant Bolton has gambled with the national security of the United States. He's exposed his country to harm and himself to civil and potentially criminal liability. But these facts do not control the motion before the court. The government has failed to establish that an injunction will prevent irreparable harm. His point is, the irreparable harm has already been done. That's under the Espionage Act. And he goes through the facts. The Bolton signed agreements not to do what he did. The Bolton had to have his book with all the classified information approved by the government. The Bolton got impatient, and he didn't wait for the government to finish. And he accused the government, that is the Trump administration, of playing politics. But it's actually a relatively short period of time, you see. So Bolton went ahead, without the process being completed, and had his book published. The judge believed he wanted to maximize the timing and the profit. It was a few months before the election, where the maximum amount of damage and interest would be at a peak, sales would be at a peak, and that's exactly what happened. Now, when this was done, it was done, I believe, in June. The Justice Department under the Trump presidency opened a criminal investigation, impaneled a grand jury to investigate John Bolton and what he had done. But then the Biden regime took over, as you well know. And then on June 16, 2021, the Biden regime issued the following. The United States District Court for the District of Columbia, United States of America versus John Bolton. See, they assumed the case. Pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 41A, the parties stipulate to the dismissal of this action with prejudice, all parties to bear their own fees and costs. They dismissed it, Mr. Producer. The Biden regime dismissed the whole thing. They shut down the grand jury. And they did it without explanation. That was the whole thing. One sentence. They never explained it. They never explained it. That's the politics, you see. That's what they did. Espionage Act is 18 United States Code, Section 793. I looked again and I saw that there's a 10-year statute of limitations, 18 United States Code, Section 19. So there's no statute of limitations issue. They get a warrant from a federal court, no doubt accompanied by one or more affidavits, demonstrating probable cause of potential evidence that a crime was committed. Now, you and I know, we've talked about the Espionage Act a lot. If you remove or destroy or conceal or use or misappropriate classified information, it doesn't even have to be documents. It could be in your head. It could be out of your mouth. It's a crime. What happened to John Bolton's documents that he used to write his book? What happened to them? What happened to any notes he may have taken, or texts, or emails? Not that that's definitive. Again, it can be in your head and you can write it down on a piece of paper, something you learned in a meeting, and that's still a violation. What happened? Now, beyond the book, even though the book is enough, the book itself is evidence. You see, that's what makes this relatively easy. The book itself is evidence. That which was not formally approved by the government at the time, where Bolton got impatient and went ahead and had his book published. There are aspects of the book, they probably took a look at it, and they know, Ratcliffe knows, Patel knows, Bondi knows, and obviously some judge knows, because they got a warrant to look. Copying, removal, possession. Who knows? New York Post wrote, they broke the story. It's not limited to the book, they say. Possible leaks during the course of the Biden administration, leaks of classified information. That's what they report. Obviously, I have no idea. They say they get that from 2 senior officials. Possible leaks of other information. The question isn't why is the Trump administration looking into this. The question isn't the timing of the Trump administration, because timing is irrelevant. No matter when they did it, they would accuse them of some timing issue or retribution or whatever it is. The question is, why did the Biden regime shut it down without explanation? That's the question. Especially considering the damnable comments, of Bolton and his conduct by a federal judge. A federal judge who, by the way, looked at the information that was in the book while in his conference room, and then had the 2 parties come in, the 2 lawyers, and looked at it with them. And he was convinced that John Bolton likely did damage to the national security of the United States. That's what he said. Right there in the last paragraph. Again, for the slow of listening and for the broadcast plagiarists out there, defendant John Bolton has gambled with the national security of the United States. He has exposed his country to harm. Got that? And himself to civil and potentially criminal liability. And now they whine on his behalf. We don't even have access to the warrant, the affidavit or affidavits supporting the warrant. But we do have access to the information that's public. And it's damning. Absolutely damning. And he's got a big problem on his hands. Big problem. That's the story up to now. And I'm going to get into in great more detail on Sunday's Life, Liberty, and Levin. You might want to check that out. By the way, Saturday's Life, Liberty, and Levin is killer. Virtually the whole program, not all, but virtually the whole program is about Newsom. Is about gruesome Newscum. We're going to have America's governor on the program, Ron DeSantis of Florida. Fantastic. We're going to have Steve Hilton on the program, who knows everything about gruesome new scum. And he'll be fantastic. And then, of course, me. And I'm going to make a challenge. I think I'm going to make a challenge at the end of the program for a new scum to come on my TV program for the full hour and debate me. Not filibuster, but debate me. Debate me. I really hope he takes us up on this, Mr. Producer. I'll put it out there. But his record is horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And I don't care how many memes he has, or emojis he has, or whatever he has. And you got fake MAGA, some of these putzes. They're out there saying, I don't know. I know. And furthermore, what he's done with the gerrymandering in California, where he hopes to get the nomination. See me, I took on the Republicans. Well, if he does get the nomination, he's not going to get many Republican or independent votes, because he just disenfranchised tens of millions of Republicans in the state of California. And on Sunday night, I have Ted Cruz and General Jack Keane, and Ted Cruz and I are going to break this down state by state. We're going to have a grand old time. And Jack Keane and I, on Sunday night, are also going to break down Putin and Russia and what they're doing now to undermine all this peace effort and so forth. So I think you're going to love these shows this weekend. But aren't you loving my show now? Yes. Yes. John Bolton isn't a victim. He's a perpetrator, according to all the public information. And the issue isn't why the Trump administration is looking at Bolton now. The issue is why the Biden administration obstructed the criminal investigation in the grand jury. That is the issue. Nobody's saying it. So if you hear somebody say it after I've talked to millions of you, you'll know that they cherry-picked it from me, this show, just now. But you know it. Now you know it. You can talk about it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we're less than a year from the 250th birthday of our great nation. But sadly, far too many have forgotten what this country stands for. Why? Because they forgot or were never even taught how this country was founded, why it was founded, and who founded it. If we lose our heritage, we lose America. That's why the Heritage Foundation needs your help. They've created a resource not just to ensure that patriots like you don't forget about the American founding, but to equip Americans with the facts they've never learned in school. This resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores the question of why it's so important to study the American founding and why the founding still matters today. Folks, don't wait. Get your free copy of this essay today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Now, included in this resource is a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. You need to read it, folks, and so does everyone you know. So go to heritage.org/LEVIN now. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. By the way, in the Biden regime, without explanation, dismissed the investigation. Bolton's spokeswoman, Sarah Tinsley. You know what she said, America? Quote, "These actions represent a complete vindication for Ambassador Bolton and a repudiation of former President Trump's attempt, under the pretext of protecting classified information, first to suppress the book's publication, and when that failed in court, to penalize the ambassador." Now, the judge admonishes this guy, Bolton, for what he did, right? In a brutal way, basically saying to the Department of Justice, you may want to prosecute this guy, either civilly or criminally. And then they claim that it is a complete vindication of Bolton and a repudiation of the Trump administration. So the gall. Now, juxtapose this to what they did to President Trump with Mar-a-Lago. Juxtapose it. There's Garland. This warrant and the raid on Mar-a-Lago was a faithful adherence to the rule of law. It's the bedrock principle of the Justice Department, I'm quoting, and of our democracy. Wow. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that's precisely what the Justice Department is doing. No, it wasn't. This guy needs to be investigated, too, if you ask me. If you ask me. Remember all the talk about Donald Trump? The Espionage Act. I said he can't violate the Espionage Act. Nobody must. And so they loaded up the indictments to Jack Smith, the unconstitutional prosecutor. These people are so evil and sleazy. Documents. But poor John Bolton made a few shekels. All he was doing is writing a book trashing his former boss as he was national security advisor with classified information. That's all. What's the problem? Boy, that doesn't set a bad precedent, does it, America? This guy used to be a friend of mine. I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it. He knew the rules. When I was chief of staff to Attorney General Meese, he was an assistant attorney general. He knew the rules. We all know the rules. We all knew the rules. But he was in a hurry. Wanted to get it out there. Wanted to get even with Trump. Wanted to make a few bucks. Biden comes in. They drop the investigation, even after what the judge said, even after what they all knew. Trump team comes in and says, not so fast. We got to take a look at all this stuff. They take a look and say, this wasn't resolved properly. They have to go to a federal court. They have to get a warrant with probable cause that a crime may have been committed. They follow the rules. That must be retribution. Ooh, retribution. Now, these are the people who unleashed everyone against Donald Trump. Everyone. Indictments in 5 jurisdictions, and tried to steal his money and steal his businesses. Tried to get him off the ballot. Tried to throw him in prison. Tried to throw family members in prison. On and on and on. Suddenly, it's Queensberry rules. Suddenly, it's a boxing match with mittens. Right? Wrong. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Here I be, America. Mark Levin, our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's Friday. But our foot is on the gas pedal here. Mamdane Rorman, what the hell's his name? Zoran, Moron, whatever. Not that long ago, he's from Uganda. His father, of course, is a Marxist Islamist professor at Columbia, spewing his hate. His mother is a movie person, spewing her hate. Very hateful, these people. Marxist, Islamist, Jew haters. And yet there are still Jews in New York who will vote for this man. And people say to me, why is that? Many of you are scratching your head, why is it? I scratch my head too. But I've explained it, with a little help from my wife. She says because these people, their faith is in the Democrat Party. It's true. But he's a self-described democratic socialist who won the Democrat primary, Democratic Socialist, which, of course, is incoherent. If you're a socialist, you believe in the government controlling the means of production and distributing wealth, but nonetheless, illiteracy is high these days. He's a punk. He's a bigot. He's a racist. He's a punk. Does that help? Now, here he is. He's not that long ago. He's screaming at the top of his lungs. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't scream. No. He wants to be mayor, mayor. And you folks in New York, if he becomes your mayor, you're going to regret it like nothing else. You certainly will. But don't worry, the minimum wage is going to be $4,000 an hour, living wage. So businesses are going to leave or they'll automate. There's no way they can survive with $30 an hour minimum wage. It's not going to happen. Nobody can do that. But if they do, the prices to you for like a slice of pizza will be unaffordable. Unaffordable. The man who talks about affordability doesn't understand affordability. He doesn't have to. Very, very rich. Not because he actually did any work or came up with some cool ideas. Because he's a trust fund baby. He's a Marxist, Islamist, Jew hater, trust fund baby. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I want you to think he's for the little guy. He never grew up with the little guy. Grew up with the big guy. He comes back from Uganda having multi-million-dollar wedding behind walls with private security. Uganda is one of the poorest countries on the face of the earth, but somehow he and his family are worth millions and millions. They're just unbelievable, but they're so wonderful. Hatip Hillel Fald on X, date unknown. So we have our Mondani, who is introduced by another disgusto. But listen very, very carefully. He's with Jewish Voice for Peace, which has nothing to do with Jewish or peace. Nothing to do with Jewish or peace. Cut 20, go.
A New York State Assembly member who our movements got into office and who is accountable to our movements. As a reminder to all these politicians that we will take them out. We will take them out when they betray us. Please join me in welcoming Zora Mondani, New York State Assembly member.
Hello, everyone! Who is ready to end U.S. military aid to Israel? I began my journey into organizing by co-founding my college's first Students for Justice in Palestine.
That's a Hamas group. That's a Hamas front group.
Until our final breaths to ensure that Zionism is not an entity that has the power any longer to subject anyone to an apartheid system of government.
All right, stop. All Zionism means is the right for Israel to exist as a country. There's nothing apartheid in Israel. That came from Marxists in South Africa who projected that on to Israel. It is a Jewish state. It has Christians, Jews, Muslims, people who are Arabs. They fight in the military, all of them. So he's out there using the most horrendous, poisonous language possible. And it's aimed at the Jews. It's not even aimed at Israel. The Zionists have control. The Zionists have control. No, the Marxist Islamist Jew haters have control, actually. And they have billions and billions of dollars that pour into this country from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and other backwards, throwback, primitive regimes with kings and queens that treat their people like crap. But I want you to hear this guy. Go ahead.
Who is ready to say that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism?
Now, first of all, anti-Zionism means everybody in Israel should perish. That's like people saying, who says anti-America is anti-Americans. Excuse me? If you want to eliminate America, you eliminate the American people. Now, here's the thing about this guy. He wants to eliminate America and Jews. So he wants to eliminate America and Americans. That's a Marxist. And being an Islamist, he wants to eliminate Americans and Jews and Christians. Go ahead. That's it. Now let's play it beginning to end without my interruption. Go ahead.
A New York State Assembly member who our movements got into office and who is accountable to our movements. As a reminder to all these politicians that we will take them out. We will take them out when they betray us. Please join me in welcoming Zoran Mandani, New York State Assembly member.
Hello, everyone! Who is ready to end U.S. military aid to Israel? I began my journey into organizing by co-founding my college's first Students for Justice in Palestine. I will fight, and we will fight, until our final breaths to ensure that Zionism is not an entity that has the power any longer to subject anyone to an apartheid system of government. Who is ready to say that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism?
Has he been endorsed by Catarlson yet, Mr. Producer? Soon, you think? Here's Zoran Mandani in New York City 2 days ago attacking hotel owners. And what do hotel owners do that should cause them to be attacked? Let's take a listen, shall we? First, the reporter. Go ahead.
For a $30 minimum wage, what would your response be to hotel owners who say that this would increase operational cost and lead to more layoffs like the ones that you're rallying against today?
You know, we see the fact that this is not about being able to make ends meet for this hotel. This is about trying to screw workers out and having even more of a profit than they already do.
This is a moron. This guy is a blockhead. That was a Fox News reporter. $30 minimum wage. And if you don't agree with that, you're trying to screw your workers. Do you understand what kind of impoverishment there's going to be? Do you understand the kind of depopulation of the city is going to take place? The shuttering of businesses? Commercial real estate where they can't lease the property? Small businessmen, you walk down the street, one of the things you love about New York is all the small business people, whether it's a jewelry store, a pizzeria, whatever it is, clothing store, knickknacks. They're not going to be able to afford $30 an hour minimum wage. And then you said you're trying to profiteer when you're trying to make ends meet. He talks about affordability. Is that affordable, America? They're dealing with an ideologue, a trust fund baby, who is a Marxist Islamist. He's a Jew hater. He's a Christian hater. He's an American hater. That's what he is. That's what he is. He shouldn't get 10% of the vote. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. all on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. One of my good buddies, for a long time actually, is a congressman by the name of Chip Roy. Now, I knew Chip before he was a congressman. Matter of fact, I knew him when he worked for a governor in Texas, and then he came to Washington and he worked for a new senator named Ted Cruz, and he became chief of staff, and the story goes on and on. And, he's solid as a rock, principled conservative. Chip Roy, welcome to the program. Hey, I like what your governor's been doing with redistricting in Texas. You see what the knucklehead did in California? He's 7% of Republican representation, even though 40% voted for Trump. And they attack Texas, where the numbers are much, much fairer in Texas, even with the 5 that switch over to Republican, no?
Yeah, Mark, great to be on, brother. Appreciate you as always. And yeah, I'm glad to see Texas take the lead in ending this ridiculousness of Republicans unilaterally disarming, while Democrats take advantage of redistricting and using their gerrymandering to have more power than we do. And frankly, as you know, because you're a smarter lawyer than I'll ever be, the ridiculousness of using the racial gerrymandering of the Voting Rights Act to hide behind that in order to advance their political gerrymandering. And now you got the Democrats, you got Newsom, who literally yesterday called this, quote, radical rigging, what's going on in Texas. And meanwhile, California has, 9 Republicans out of, 53 or 4 total seats, yeah. And now they want to shrink it? Illinois
down to 4.
I think they're
down to 4.
Yeah. And Massachusetts has 0. And these are states that are 60-40 inverted that way. And, of course, Texas is 60-40 the other way. Yet we're a more balanced mix. So we want to get 5 more seats because you know why? Turnabout is fair play. Let's fight fire with fire. And that's precisely what's happening here. Just like, by the way, when Texas finally started leading the nation by taking these cases to forums and judicial forums that were actually in our favor. And then Democrats lost their mind because they love a rigged system. They love mail-in ballots. They love voting fraud. They love gerrymandering. And they love a rigged system so they can advance their Marxism. So glad to see Texas fight back, and we'll see how far we can go.
So I understand that yesterday you announced you're going to give up your House seat. At some point, you're going to run for Attorney General of the state of Texas. Is that correct? And what's the Attorney General do?
Yeah, Mark, look, I'm in my 4th term in Congress. Thanks heavily due to you and your great audience and the great support over the years. I feel like we've made a great mark here. And after 4 years, I feel like it's time to go take, as they say in sports, take my talents elsewhere and come home to Texas. Look, I represent the part of the Hill Country that just dealt with the devastating floods. I worked closely with the local law enforcement, DPS, Texas Department of Emergency Management, the governor's office, all the people on the ground in the executive branch in Texas to help the people that I represent. And it just became clear to me that the good Lord was calling me home. My kids are 14 and 15, and I want to be able to be back in the saddle in Texas to fight to defend Texas. And you ask what the AG's office does. It is the chief, officer that can stand in the court and defend our laws. It's the guy that can stand up and defend Texas in front of the rest of the land and can lead the way for the law enforcement community and can, frankly, stand up and start to draw a line in the sand on some of these key issues. You have the wide open borders. Now, President Trump's doing a great job, but a future president may not. The state of Texas, the AG's office, has to be at the tip of the spear to defend our communities from the wide open border politicians. We've got to have an AG that's willing to stand up and defend against the corporatists and the, Chi-coms that are buying up our lands and that are attacking our small businesses and preventing Americans from being able to afford health care. We got to stop the march of jihad and the Islamists who are advancing Sharia law contrary to the First Amendment, not consistent with it. So these are all the kinds of things that I think are important, including election integrity, making sure only American citizens can vote. The AG, as you know, is the chief vehicle for the Texans to have their laws defended and to stand up against the long arm of not just the federal government, but the globalists who want to take away our values and our Western civilization. So I feel called to be back. I'm uniquely qualified. You know me. former federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, former First Assistant Attorney General. And I want to take all that we've done in the Freedom Caucus and in the House and take it back to Texas. And we've got a lot of great guys that are going out. Andy Biggs in Arizona, Ralph Norman in South Carolina, Byron Donalds to Florida, myself in Texas. And we got to set the stage for the years beyond Trump. We're living in the glory years right now, but we got to make sure we're protecting our kids and our communities going forward.
Well, I know you're fantastic. I know you're a terrific public servant and a terrific human being, a friend of the family. And I want to endorse you. So I'm going to endorse Chip Roy for Attorney General of Texas. Not that that's going to make all the difference in the world, but we're heard all over your beautiful state, Chip, and you would be a fantastic Attorney General.
Well, I'm deeply appreciative, not just of your friendship and not just of this support. By the way, it's chiproy.com. But look, just what you mean for this country, what you've meant through your books, what you've meant as a lawyer, fighting through Landmark and fighting all these great cases. This country is a far freer and better place because of you. And I'm not just saying that. I think we go back long enough and your audience knows it, but it matters. And I appreciate your support. It means a lot. There's a handful of people in this world whose opinion matters to me, and yours is, top on the list. And I'm deeply appreciative.
Well, you're very, very kind. That's chiproy.com. We'll put it on our social sites. Now, people can find out throughout the course of the campaign what you're up to. They can donate to you, right? So this is the place to go, chiproy.com in Texas and all over the country.
The only reason I won my first congressional district seat was because of a Levin surge, friend, and so appreciate that. And look, we're going to do this. I've got very, very high name ID, very, very high favorables when you look at the polling, and we're going to get out there. We're going to work it. We're going to crisscross the state. My family's been in Texas since 1853, and I'm going to fight to defend it.
And you'll be a great Attorney General in a great state. We love our Texas. We got to keep Texas red. We got to keep Florida red. We got to do what we got to do. And you're going to do that. And it'll be a safer place. It'll be a more family, hospitable place with you there. In other words, people can rest assured that things are going to go well.
I've got 16 more months to keep fighting for the good people of the 21st District and to fight alongside President Trump and all my friends in the Freedom Caucus. We got to deliver. We got to win the majority back next year. And then I'll come back to Texas and I'll defend our laws and defend our maps and make sure we protect our values here in Texas.
So, Chip, very quickly, who else has endorsed you? Anybody else at this point?
We've had a lot of my Freedom Caucus colleagues have endorsed me. I've got a couple more that are really important that'll be coming out very soon. Some people you know and that I know that'll be coming out very strong. We've had strong endorsements from the Gun Owners of America. We've got some other groups coming out, but I just announced yesterday, and those will be coming out in the next couple days.
And Senator Cruz, I'm sure, is going to love you. You're his former chief of staff. God bless. We'll be right back. How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
There's a lot to get to here. The president's trying hard as he can to put an end to that war between Russia and Ukraine. It's not Ukraine, it's Russia. They're the problem. They invaded. And Putin. Putin's a liar. So the president is trying to do the best he can to prod this monster, this butcher, to do the right thing. But he won't do it. At least not yet. And I don't expect he ever will. And so there's basically three things that Putin wants. He wants territory, including territory he hasn't conquered, which is a line of defense in Ukraine that has been built up as strong, almost impenetrable, and he wants it. He wants the international community to recognize the land that he's already taken and the land that he would be given, and a new one. There to be no European or American troops, but there were never going to be American troops, but no European troops in Ukraine defending Ukraine. In other words, he wants Ukraine. Now, you'll never guess which country will soon have the biggest military in Europe. Bigger than the Germans. Bigger than the British. Poland. Poland is hugely building up its military because it's read the same document I read, where Putin says Poland effectively is next. You cut through Ukraine, you go to Poland, or you go to Romania, or you can go to the Balkan states, and so forth. They understand it. You understand it. Big problem. And so here is this guy, Sergei Lavrov. Now, Sergei Lavrov's been around a long time. He's in his 70s. You've seen him around. His sort of that dog-skinned face. He's been married many years. I look at the backgrounds of these guys. I think he has one or two daughters, and he's got a lover on the side who he's had for like 20 years. You know, when you have this kind of immense power, I guess you can do whatever you want. Putin's got kids here and there, but of course he doesn't admit it. Crazy bastards. Well, here he is yesterday, Lavrov, cut 16, go.
Russia has always been for honest talk, and those principles, those security guarantees that were agreed upon, I emphasize, at the initiative of the Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul in April 2022. They were indeed based on the principle of collective security, on the principles of indivisibility of security, while everything else, everything unilateral, those are, of course, absolutely hopeless undertakings. And even more so, the plans of the West are essentially connected with providing guarantees to Ukraine through foreign military intervention in some part of Ukrainian territory. But I hope they understand that this will be absolutely unacceptable for the Russian Federation and for all sensible political forces in Europe.
They act like Ukraine is not an independent country. It is. If Ukraine wants foreign forces in its country, it's free to do so. But yesterday, they unloaded massive number of missiles, drones. They blew up an American factory. So they're doing more, not less. And now they're making their conditions even more stringent, more impossible to accept. So here's President Trump today in the Oval Office. Cut 15, go.
How long will you give Putin?
A couple of weeks. We're going to figure it out. We'll find it.
Do you think you'll have to intervene at some point?
Look, it takes two to tango. You understand that. I wanted to have a meeting with those two. I could have been at the meeting, but a lot of people think that nothing's going to come out of that meeting. You have to be there. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But we're going to see. In the meantime, people continue to die. But I've solved 7 of them where they were in wars for 31, 35, and 37 years. We had 3 of them that were for more than 30 years, Johnny, and I got them solved. And we solved one that could have been a nuclear war with India and Pakistan. That was getting ready to be a nuclear war. I solved them all. And this one, I thought we would have had it done by now, but it's more different. There's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. There's a tremendous amount of hatred there. So, but we'll see what happens. I think in 2 weeks we'll know which way I'm going. Because I'm going to go one way or the other. And they'll learn which way I'm going.
If I'm Putin, I'd pay attention to that. But Putin is a madman. That's what he is. Putin is a madman. And even whatever he agrees to, he's looking beyond Trump. He's a killer. Why would you take 20,000 Ukrainian children and babies and bring them into Russia and adopt them out to Russian families? That's pretty sick. And as I said the other evening, the reason why the Ukrainians are fighting to the last man and woman is because the Ukrainian soldiers have seen what they've done to their POWs and what they do to innocent civilians, how they brutalize them, much like the Hamas. Much like Hamas. And so, they're not going to give up. Now, the president has talked about, and I believe it's wise, in 2 weeks or whatever the amount of time is, if this is Russia's position, then Ukraine needs to have weapons where they can actually hit Russia as a way of forcing Russia's hand. It can't just be Kiev and the other cities and towns in Ukraine keep getting incoming, and they get more intense, and they focus more and more on the population centers and the infrastructure, just literally destroying the ability of this country to survive. Basic electricity and sewage and the availability of clean water and so forth. Slamming into hospitals and nursing homes and apartment buildings. It's amazing how few people are marching in the street about the slaughter of the Ukrainians by the Russians. Isn't that amazing, Mr. Producer? We don't see it anywhere. Anywhere. Well, there's other things that can be done economically, too, to crush and destroy Russia's economy. It's already weak. We've talked about them here. We're going to go over them with Jack Keane on my Sunday Fox show. But they would include, of course, tariffs on India and China to prevent them or make it much more costly and difficult for them to purchase oil from Russia. That's the cash flow into Russia. That's the liquidity that Russia needs from oil. And also we can sanction their banks and so forth, which will really destroy their financial system. Now, Reagan did similar things to destroy the Soviet Union. So it can be done. And that's what peace through strength means. That's what it means. Because Putin's hardening his positions. That's what he's doing. He's hardening his positions. He's got nobody to challenge him. He's killed off all opposition, whether it's in business, from political parties, the press. He's killed them all. Kills them. Throws them in prison for a period of time and then has them taken out. That's what he does. And so there's going to have to be more pressure, in my humble opinion. And nobody better to do it than President Trump. Now, President Trump's going to wait him out a little bit, but, at some point, ask Iran. At some point, there'll be a point of no return. And he said he's going to take one side or the other. I think it's pretty obvious to me what side he's going to take. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Over at the Jewish News Service, really a great news site. UN-backed report based on fabricated view of Gaza famine, Israel says, and nonetheless it ran on every cable channel, all of them, about an hour ago on their news programs. It really is so sickening. Even conservatives run with this stuff. Let me read this to you. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, a tool associated with some 25 global partners, including UN agencies, said on Friday, it confirmed with reasonable evidence that there has been famine in Gaza since August 15th. After 22 months of relentless conflict, over 500,000 people in the Gaza Strip are facing catastrophic conditions characterized by starvation, destitution, and death, per that report. The Israeli government stated, although the IPC has previously confirmed famine in other crises, this was the first time such a declaration was made for Gaza. First time it rested on evidence that fell far short of the standard normal requirement. Famine classifications are intended to be exceptional, applied only when mortality and malnutrition rates clearly and indisputably exceed the most extreme benchmarks. The Jewish state said that the famine determination contradicts recent publicly available data and uses outdated figures while downplaying or disregarding newer information that directly undermine the famine classification. The Israeli Foreign Ministry stated that the IPC bent its own rules to fit Hamas's campaign. They changed the threshold and changed the definition before they released this report. As they point out, they lowered famine thresholds, ignored criteria, and laundered Hamas lies. Meanwhile, reality tells a different story. Over 100,000 aid trucks have entered Gaza since the war began. Markets are stocked. Food prices are falling. The IPC could not find famine, so they forged one. You know who's starving? The hostages kidnapped and tortured by uncivilized Hamas savages, said our fantastic ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Maybe the overfed terrorists could share some of their warehouse full they stole with hungry people, especially the hostages, he said. Antonio Guterres, this guy's a piece of crap, the UN General Secretary, stated that there were no more excuses and so forth and so. He's orchestrating the whole thing. Orchestrating the whole thing. Among the sources listed in the report is data from the Gaza Health Ministry, which Hamas controls. The word Hamas doesn't appear anywhere in the IPC report, even though it's the invisible hand. The Israeli coordination of government activities in the territories also refuted the report. They said instead of providing professional, neutral, and responsible assessment, the report adopts a biased approach, riddled with severe methodological flaws, thereby undermining its credibility and trust in the international community, stated Major General Hassan Alian. We expect the international community to act responsibly, not to be swept away by false narratives and unfounded propaganda, but rather to examine the complete data and the facts on the ground. And so, every one of our news organizations ran with the UN report. Every one of them. Every one of them. Without exception. I'm going to read something to you, a flashback. Flashback on this day in 1940. Winston Churchill explaining, writes Michael Lewis, his blockade of food to countries under Nazi control. He says, it is our intention to maintain and enforce a strict blockade not only of Germany, but of Italy, France, and all the other countries that have fallen into the German power. I read in the newspapers that Herr Hitler has also proclaimed a strict blockade of the British Islands. No one can complain of that. I remember the Kaiser doing it in the last war. What indeed would be a matter of general complaint would be if we were to prolong the agony of all of Europe by allowing food to come into and nourish the Nazis and aid their war effort, or to allow food to go into the subjected peoples, which certainly would be pillaged off of them by their Nazi conquerors. You see, Hamas is the modern-day Nazi. And this is exactly what they're doing. Churchill said there have been many proposals founded on the highest motives that food should be allowed to pass the blockade for the relief of these populations. I regret that we must refuse these requests. The Nazis declare that they have created a new unified economy in Europe. They have repeatedly stated that they possess ample reserves of food and they can feed their captive peoples. In a German broadcast, they said While Hoover's plan for relieving France, Poland, and Holland deserved commendation, the German forces had already taken the necessary steps. And he goes on. He says, no, we're going to blockade them. We got to bring this war to an end. Sound familiar?
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America, the final hour of the show, the final hour of the week. Our numbers? What the hell is our number, anyway? 877-381-3811. Sorry. Had a Biden moment. Politico. The woke words Democrats should cut from their vocabulary. A new memo identifies 45 words and phrases for Democrats to avoid, alleging the terms turn voters off. They span 6 categories, from therapy speak to explaining away crime. Democrats seem to think they can talk their way out of the political wilderness, writes Adam Wren. And then they go on and on about this. Different categories. Among the blacklisted terms, privilege, violence, environmental violence, dialoguing, triggering, othering, microaggression, holding space, body shaming, and on and on. Do we issue memos, Mr. Producer, telling people what words to use? And what words not to use? This fits in perfectly with Chapter 4 of my book on power, called On Language. Listen to this. Language has many purposes, of course, but at its core, language is about communication. There are many types of communication, many purposes for it as well. And I organize them in power of language and power over language. The pursuit and maintenance of negative power, which is the left, require the utilization of negative techniques of communication, including manipulation, deception, repetition, deceit, concealment, distraction, and fear-mongering. In language that is intimidating, self-serving, and orchestrated. It's almost as if they read this chapter in my book and they said, uh-oh, he's on to us, so we better amend this, we better change this. It is an approach that seeks to arouse prejudices and stifle independent thought. The purpose is to exert power over language and to control the population without moral reservations. Indeed, morality itself is said to be relative or nothing but an abstraction concealing the rot of open societies and democracies and obfuscating the exploitation of the people. In the political context, when language is applied this way, it strikes a central part of the democratic system, denying the body politic information with which to make knowledgeable, qualitative, and collective decisions. Of course, this is the intention of its practitioners. Moreover, communication of this sort exists for the purpose of arousing and angering the citizenry and exhorting them to action that is destructive of the existing society and their own lives in service to the demagogue and his aims. And it goes on, does this negative power. Now let's go back to the Politico piece. Matt Bennett of Third Way, Executive Vice President of Public Affairs. We're doing our best to get Democrats to talk like normal people and stop talking like they're leading a seminar at Antioch. We think language is one of the central problems we face with normie voters. Well, there you are. He's using normie voters, signaling that we are out of touch with how they live, think, and talk. Recent weeks, this has become a bit of a thing with comedians like Jimmy Kimmel and Sarah Silverman, highlighting how insane Democrats can sometimes sound. The group doesn't base its list on any specific polling, and the authors don't offer specific counter-recommendations for these terms, but they do outline the values their vision of the party includes. They say, we will never abandon our values or stop doing things to protect those who need help, encouragement, trust, or second chance, acceptance, or a fair shake, the opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But as the catastrophe of Trump 2.0 has shown, the most important thing we can do for those people and causes, build a bigger army to fight them. Communicating in authentic ways that welcome rather than drive voters away will be a good start. So the point for these people is they use language for power. They don't use language to persuade. They don't use language to communicate knowledge. Listen to them. They don't use language to share relevant information or anything of the kind. They use language to manipulate, to coerce, to create an army of supporters, which is exactly what I write in the book in chapter 4. If I had to guess, these people read the book. And they read chapter 4. And they said, Levin is on to us. So we got to change our tactics. But they can't. They can try, but it won't work. It won't work. They say the Democrat Party brand is toxic across the country at this point, with way too many people, enough that there's no way for us to win a governing majority without changing that, says somebody named Erickson. Part of the problem was that we were using words that literally no normal people use, that we were sticking to messages that were so overly scripted that they basically sounded like nothing. But, ladies and gentlemen, words can't paper over policies, ideology, ideas. That's their problem. That's their problem. And that's why I wrote this section on language. And I say this. It's not by mistake that classic and ethnic warfare, among other forms of exploitation, are employed incessantly by American Marxists. The goal is to subvert the civil society and the principles, values, and beliefs on which it was established, corrupt the public spirit and civic harmony, and reject compromise and accommodation. The people must be unmoored from and cleansed of their history, faith, and family. Service to the state in its utopian fiction is the highest calling. It's not the only calling. And all other forms of experience, if not the only calling, and all other forms of experience and socialization are impediments and hindrances to the cause. Democracies are not immune to this plight. In fact, they are susceptible to it. Negative power, and therefore negative language, exists in all societies, albeit to a different degree than in totalitarian regimes. An examination of its influence in democracies requires a review of positive language in democracies, and I get into that as well. But this entire article, this entire memo that the Democrats are writing to their bigwigs and among themselves, is a reflection of what I expose in Chapter 4 of On Power. Now, I don't think they'll be successful in what they're trying to do. In some ways, Third Way, writes Politico, is reaching the same political conclusion Vice President J.D. Vance arrived at during his interview with Fox's Laura Ingraham this week. Quote, I mean, look, the autopsy for the Democrats. Some free political advice from the President of the United States is stop sounding like crazy people. Erickson mentioned crime as a key issue in which Democrats need to recalibrate, citing Trump's invasion of D.C., quote unquote. This group, Third Way, sees it as a place to start. We need to reflect on the ways that our bubble and our fear of being criticized by anyone on the left has led to a problem with both our policy and our language. So my prediction in this book, my prediction to you is it'll only get worse before it gets better in terms of how they deceive with propaganda, mislead, as they try to create an army of conformists, which is what they really want. An army of conformists. So they're going to get louder and more bitter. They're going to change their words. They're going to change meanings of words. As I say in On Language, that's what they do, and that's what they'll continue to do. They'll try and conceal what their true objectives are. Another feature of negative power, as I write in On Power, is that it seeks to dominate the society, culture, and body politic. Our Constitution is constructed against domination by any party, person, faction, mob, or despot. In addition to the core principle of separation of powers, the language of the Constitution is fashioned toward the same ends. There's great risk when alerting our Constitution or when altering our Constitution. And yet that's what these people want to do. Words have consequences, like ideas have consequences. That's the truth. So it'll get worse before it gets better. And they will continue to lie and deceive and do what they do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. You know, Alex Marlow is one of the great, really, podcasters. But more than that, he runs this fantastic site, Breitbart. And it's one of my favorite sites. I bookmark it. And he's got great people there, like Joel Pollack, among others. And he is a great writer. And he's got a great book out called Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump. You know, Alex, I can't think of a better time for this book, given what we learn about Obama and Hillary, and given what we see going on with Bolton that needs to be done, and so forth and so on. Explain to the nation why you decided to write this book and how you've broken it down.
Mark, first of all, thank you. It is always such a pleasure to be in your show. You are such a leader in this movement. I was reading On Power this afternoon. It's fantastic as always. Congrats on another #1, and we need you right now. So thank you for being here for all of us in your audience who have been in your audience for so many decades now at this point.
Now, hold on. See what I mean, folks? See how nice he is? He doesn't have to say all that, but he is. He's a sweetheart. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean it. It's genuine. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true, because I know you would tell if I was BSing you, Mark.
Right. No.
I wrote this book because I was going through the process of trying to understand the cases against President Trump. And I'd talked about doing something like this with my agent and my editor. We shared the same editor at Threshold, Simon & Schuster. And I wanted to do something like this, and I thought it needed to be done. And then when I saw the convicted felon branding take off and Trump got convicted for nothing, and it was a trial that never should have happened, and it only occurred, now we know, because of the Russia collusion hoax. He never would have been busted, aside from the fact that they got access to Michael Cohen's Gmail account through the fake, absurd Russia hoax. And it was the fact that we weren't holding people accountable for the lawfare of yesteryear was the reason why the lawfare perpetuated, and they were on the verge of rigging the 2024 election, depriving us, we the people, the citizens, of the right to vote to choose our own president by jailing him or trying to just beat him into submission during the election. And there were so many cases going on at once, even I could barely keep them straight, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, because there were 6 happening at the same time. And I thought, they're asking this guy to win 6 cases and win a presidential campaign from the courthouse. And now someone's got to tell this story, and I dig into it, and I learn, of course, all 6 of the major cases have ties to Joe Biden's White House, all patently illegal, blatant violations of due process rights, 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment. We learn 8th Amendment violations from Tish James. Same goes for that E. Jean Carroll, the woman case, where there was a $90 million penalty when Carroll only asked for $15 million. Another completely absurd case. And they're throwing everything at this guy, and no one is standing up for him. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to lay it out for the people. I'm going to stand up for this president, and hopefully this will be the catalyst to get some justice. So then I'm writing the bookmark. And all of a sudden he wins, which is terrific. So I'm, 3/4 of the way through. And the lawfare apparatus doesn't slow down. It speeds up. Now they're doing the injunctions. They're doing the TROs. They're demanding Bukele send back El Salvadorian national illegal aliens back to America. These people have lost their minds. And so I need to dig into who's funding it, how big the superstructure is, and hopefully give we the people some ideas of what we can do to fight back.
Now, this is what's key. This is what drew my attention. The book is fantastic. The book is absolutely... I encourage you folks to go to Amazon.com or your local bookstore over the weekend. Breaking the Law by our friend Alex Marlow, the head muckety-muck over there at Breitbart. The donors and the activists, you really dig into this. So there's George Soros, right? Who else? Just off the top of your head.
Thank you. So first of all, Soros is really important to talk about because we actually underestimate him. It's one of these things where we know these things are happening and they're bad. But one man single-handedly ruined all of American cities by buying these DA races. And I think it's like 80 million Americans live in a city with a Soros-funded DA who probably wouldn't be in there unless for Soros' money. And he buys these seats. And they sow law and order in our streets. He's an agent of chaos. He doesn't want law and order. He hates law and order. And so he buys these DA races. And then we're powerless to watch our cities deteriorate, aside from, of course, Washington, D.C., and Trump's absolutely right to crack down the way he's doing. I hope he comes to my neck of the woods in L.A. next. But there are other names that are really important here. Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman might be familiar to some people in your audience, a billionaire who got his money from LinkedIn and other Silicon Valley stuff. He funded the Jean Carroll case, which was an absurd case from decades ago. And this woman selling a book, she comes out as George Conway's idea to go after Trump. And she, a columnist, gets access to the best attorneys in the world. How does she get them? She gets them from Reid Hoffman. How about the Sandler Foundation? This is one that might be new to your audience. Herb Sandler was a guy who was a banker, made a lot of money in banking, and he was the original guy to use the guise of philanthropy to do left-wing activism. Of course, George Soros, Laurene Powell Jobs, Reid Hoffman, names that might be familiar to your audience, they followed in his footsteps. He was the one who created this concept, and he worked with Soros and Jobs and others. But every time you read a hit piece on Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito trying to make their lives miserable because they dare to be originalists in this moment, it's funded by the Sandler Foundation. And they're going to keep doing it. They're undeterred. These people are vicious. And they are part of the lawfare superstructure. They also fund other elements that amplify their hit pieces, their investigations, trying to harass conservatives and originalists. Last one I'll give you, David Brock. David Brock, again, might be a name you may have heard of because he founded Media Matters. He's a donor magnate. If David Brock wanted a dog adoption, Mark, to counter all the good work you're doing for dogs in your community. And he wanted to counter you with a dog adoption. The left-wing donor, every left-wing donor would give money. He's one of those guys. You know what he's doing now? Something called Project 65, which is what he's trying to do is to get people who represent people like Donald Trump and his supporters disbarred so they can't apply their craft, they can't work. We're not talking about no white-shoe law firm jobs. We're talking no jobs at all. And that's what these guys are doing, and he's funded by everyone. So this is what I'm saying. This is the threat to MAGA at this moment. It's lawfare.
I didn't know it was Brooks that was behind that Project 65, which tries to disbar any lawyer who dares to represent anyone related to Trump or a conservative or a Republican. So they even went after Alan Dershowitz, as I recall. They went after everybody.
They got after everyone, and they got a big scalp with John Eastman, who's just trying to give Trump the best counsel he can. He can't work. He's currently, his law license is suspended. I mean, that's a very high-profile victory for them. And no one pinned it to Brock, which is bizarre to me, but I'm here to do it.
No, that's terrible. He's a good man. By the way, what do you make of this site Mediaite? I think it's a crass, stupid site. They like a copy from Media Matters, and it's run by this guy, Dan Abrams, who pretends he's some kind of newsy guy, but he's like the Jerry Springer of cable TV. Do you know much about these people?
I'm so glad you bring it up, and I hope they're listening. These are the dumbest
trust
people
me, they
on the
are.
internet. It is the dumbest internet site with the worst writing, the worst ideas for stories. But for some reason, they've convinced some people in some newsrooms that they care about what they write. But everyone I've talked to over there is a stone-cold moron.
That's what I say. If you have a low
I don't say that lightly. People know I'm not one to name call. But they're just dumb.
Yeah, they are dumb, and their headlines are crazy. And by the way, the Breitbart has like the greatest website, the way you guys do the headlines, and you get the news up there very, very fast. I want to delve more into your book after the break, and I want to delve into how you guys at Breitbart do this every day. It's amazing. We're talking to the great Alex Marlow, his great new book, Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump. It is thorough, it is readable, and your eyes are going to pop out of your head like Nancy Pelosi. You can get it at Amazon. You can put them back, though. You can get it at Amazon.com, any retail store. We'll be right back.
Mark the 10, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We are back with our friend Alex Marlow, the editor-in-chief over there at Breitbart, and the author of a fantastic new book, Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump. There's a lot of this going on, as you pointed out, Alex. What would you say are the top 2 or 3, if you could even categorize it that way, of lawful, illegal, really, efforts at lawfare against Donald Trump?
So I think the big one, you got to take it overarching. What happened with the Joe Biden Department of Justice and the Joe Biden White House, I think was clearly illegal because you know the Constitution better than anyone I know. Mark, are you allowed to pursue a political persecution to try to take out a the standard bearer of the opposite political party in this country. We've certainly never seen it, but it's very clear that this happened. It's every single case. It's all 6 of the cases that I document. You could start with the Stormy Daniels case, which is the most egregious because that was the one that turned into the completely phony criminal conviction of Trump, where Joe Biden's DOJ sent a ringer, this guy Matthew Colangelo, he's a number 3 at the DOJ. He was on pace to be an FBI director or Supreme Court justice. They sent him to Alvin Bragg's office in Manhattan to try to take out Trump. What else was he doing there other than to try to win a political election? How about the Fonnie Willis case, the Georgia RICO case? She hires her boyfriend, Nathan Wade, and they bag a bunch of cash, go on a bunch of vacations with it. But Nathan Wade was a family lawyer. He was doing divorces and prenups. All of a sudden, he's on the case, and what is he doing? He's going to the White House for 8 hours at a time so that he could have these meetings with people. What was he doing in these meetings? We don't know exactly, Mark, but we also do know. We know exactly what he was doing because there's no other reason for a family lawyer who's a nobody to go to the White House other than to talk about the Trump cases. The 2 Jack Smith cases, unconstitutional appointment by Merrick Garland, who I believe was put up to it by Vanita Gupta and Lisa Monaco, who were really the 2 bad guys in the DOJ. But he does it. He makes the call, puts Jack Smith in there. It's not a real job. It's a fake job, and he operates with impunity, leaking to the Washington Post the whole time for 18 months, and then we learned finally it was illegal. I mentioned the Eugene Carroll case where Reid Hoffman, who is funding the case, kept going to the White House over and over. And don't get me started on Tish James, who's the number 1 offender of them all. So all of this was so offensive, and it gets more offensive the more you read it. I recommend probably a dozen investigations in the book, Mark, because they really are necessary. But number 1 and 2 are Tish James and Jack Smith, and they're under investigation already, and that is great news.
That is great news. And again, the book is Breaking the Law. Amazon.com, any major bookstore, exposing the weaponization of America's legal system against Donald Trump. This book is prescient, and it's right on target, and this is the time for this book. So, Alex Marlow, how do you run such a great website? I mean, I don't know how many people you have. I don't want to get into proprietary stuff, but you guys seem to be on top of everything. You get the news out there fast. You get the opinions out there fast. That's not easy to do.
It's so kind of you to say that. It means the world to me. But I'll tell you, one of the objectives I have every day is I want people like you. I want the biggest talk shows in the world. And I got this because Andrew Breitbart, I watched him. I was the first employee of the company 17 years ago. And I was in Andrew Breitbart's basement, and he was writing the Drudge Report back when Drudge Report was a conservative website. And when he would come up with a story, he would pass it to Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or some of the biggest names in talk radio. And they would just go live to air with it. And he would show me, watch this. He'd say to me, we'd be listening on his Bose Wave radio and in his basement. And he'd send them a story, and they'd go straight to the air with it. And I was thinking the real power in that is that he was so trusted that he knew that if he could send those guys a story, they could take it to air, and they could put their name on the line with Andrew's stuff. And that's what I want to be for you, Mark. Like, that's what I want. When you read something at Breitbart, I want you to know you don't need to vet it. You don't need to find 3 other sources. Once you see this is a Breitbart article, I can take this to my audience on the air right now and not think twice about it. That's really the goal. And if I'm furthering that goal, then we're having a good day. And if we're going backwards in that regard, we're having a bad day. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we reference it all the time here, don't we, Mr. Producer? We love the Breitbart website. It is absolutely reliable. I even think your enemies on the hard left, I think they realize that Breitbart is reliable and Breitbart is a problem for them because you're breaking through what they're trying to, all the static they're trying to create. Don't you think?
Yeah, part of it's because we have fun. It's the front page. I always want a huge economy of words. I tell my guys on the front page, which is really my baby, that if you could say something in 5 words, say it in 5 words. It's a don't waste people's time. Be fun. Be efficient. Call out the bad guys. Be fearless. You're only taking flack if you're over the target. So if people are taking shots at us, that's always a good sign. So we're hardened warriors, but we're also having a blast while we're doing it. So hopefully it becomes an addiction for people.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, it's the perfect evening. You got a great weekend to grab this book. I know you're going to love it. If you're grabbing my book, grab his too. You get a good discount out there. It's Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump. Alex, it's been a delight, my friend, and keep up the great work. We really appreciate you.
Mark, it'd be an honor to host you on the Alex Marlow Show whenever you'd like, so let me know we can make that happen.
All right, brother. You have a great weekend, too. God bless. That guy's a class act. He's a nice man. My wife and I bumped into him, and forget where. I think it was at the airport, and what a nice person. No no affectation, none of that stuff. Just a good guy, and he works hard, and he's got a great team over there. And we very much appreciate him. All right. Do we have any callers here? Let's see what we've got going on here. I'd rather not hit any more news. No. I can't get in there, Mr. Producer. Give me the name of somebody. I can't seem to get in. XM Satellite, Pat in Dallas, Texas. Go right ahead, please. All right. Lower the radio and go.
All right, just a moment. I don't have a radio on. I'm watching Star Trek.
All right, good. How can I help you, sir?
I visited the White House and met with our president, our commander-in-chief, vice president, his wife.
All right, thanks for your call. I don't know what this guy's doing. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on there. It's okay. Let's go to Iban Jonesboro on the Mark Levin app. How are you, sir? Or ma'am, I mean.
Hi, Mark. This is she. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, Mark. I'm nervous, and I'm excited at the same time to talk to you.
Don't
so
be
I might
nervous.
get nervous, okay?
Don't be nervous.
I've been telling my husband, I said, I have got to call Mark. It's on my bucket list to talk to you.
Oh, my
goodness. So I was
goodness.
listening to you today, and so I said, I'm calling right now. So anyway, I just want to thank you for being so good about, opening our eyes to so much corruption, so many things about the Democrat Party. And I don't know. I got so much to say. I'm going to say it quickly, so I don't want you to have to hang up on me. But anyway, I'm currently reading 3 of your books.
Whoa.
One which is on power.
Thank you.
And I've collected so many of them already. And my favorite was about Spritey. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just wanted to call you and tell you that I've learned so many things from you about the history of the Democrat Party and just everything. Every day I learn something new from you, and I am a listener.
Thank you.
I've been for a long, long time.
Now, Jonesboro, Arkansas, I've heard of it before, and I don't mean to sound like a rube or anything like that. Where is that near? I mean, it's a substantial town.
It's about an hour out of Memphis.
I'm
in northeast Arkansas. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
You've got a great senator in this Tom Cotton. We love Tom Cotton here. Just love the man.
Oh, I love him. And our
Yeah.
governor. Yes.
Yes, your governor. That's right. And your former governor.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, of course. I have one more question for you. Who is the person that does your voice, introduce you in the evenings?
I'm not sure what his name is, actually. Ed O'Brien.
I'm telling you. Oh, okay. I'm telling you, every time he starts, I want to get that, and I say it right with him. I get so excited. So anyway.
Aren't you something? You're a sweetheart. I'll tell you what, don't hang up. We're going to send you a signed copy of On Power, and you can give your other copy to somebody else. So don't hang up. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Why don't we take a break now, and we'll come back. Does that make sense, Mr. Producer? We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Trying to make sense of what this former federal prosecutor analyst over at CNN Honig made. Usually he's pretty good, but he wasn't today. Let's see if we can track this. Basically, he says, look, I knew they were not going to make any more criminal cases when they decided to release this information that Ghislaine Maxwell was telling the Deputy Attorney General. Because if you're going to make a case, you wouldn't release the information. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there were other cases to make, they would have been made by either the Biden regime or they would have been made by the current administration. So that's not a great tell. That's not a great revelation. I mean, she was already prosecuted. There was already a grand jury. There was already a trial. There were all these things. If she had more information, she would have provided it to the prosecution in order to try and avoid jail or reduce the sentence or something. So that's not a big revelation over there at CNN. Something's not right, he says. Well, what's not right? What's not right? So everybody's saying she's not believable. I don't know if she's believable or not. Again, what is the end game here? I don't understand. What is the point of all this? I don't know what the point of all this is. He's dead. That's a good thing. She's in prison for 20 years. That's a good thing. So what's the point? I don't know. I really don't. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to watch Life, Liberty, and Levin tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Why don't you set your DVR just in case? Same with Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. 2 fantastic shows. I know you're going to love them. I know you're going to love them. Don't forget to get out there and grab On Power if you're shopping this weekend. It's got a great discounted price as well as on Amazon.com. You're going to love this book, I'm telling you. It's very, very important. All right, here we go. Is officially over. The weekend begins right now. Life, Liberty, and Levin tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Don't miss it. Set your DVR. Don't forget, grab your copy of On Power. When I leave the air, you can go right to Amazon and pick it up right there, or any bookstore. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel. Good night, Spritey and Griffey. Good night, Pepsi and Smokey. Good night, Zelda and Indy and Patton and Rory. Good night, Gigi and Marty and Barney. We miss you all. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo and Joe. Good night, Bernard. Good night, Teddy. Good night, Lou, and all the other great patriots. You're missed very much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend. Wonderful weekend. I'll see you on Fox tomorrow night. Set your DVR. And thank you for being here. I'm blessed at our National Town Hall meeting. God bless you.